So let's go through these different characteristics. Uh, You've looked at usability testing, you looked at field studies, you looked at analytical evaluations, and you tried to think about what types of participants you'd involve, where it's located, when it occurs in the design process, what data you might handle, what kind of feedback, and what kind of type of evaluation it is. So with usability testing, you have participants do the task. You can actually have this very structured setup that you control the environment. And in there, you can have people do the tasks that you've already uncovered during your requirement step and that you're trying to support during your design and prototyping steps. It's typically located in a laboratory setting, so you have a lot more control over what's happening. Many companies and research labs have a usability lab or a place that they can bring people into to actually do these evaluations in practice. They might have something like a one-way mirror for observation, etc. And so it's an actual environment that you can do. Here at the University of Waterloo, we have several that the HCI faculty use, and some of them are structured to look like someone's living room. So there's in the Games Institute, there is a usability lab that is structured to allow people to play games on a couch as if they're in their living room. So they get some naturalness, but it's still in a lab environment. You typically do usability testing with a prototype. You might want a more finished prototype. So an early sketch or paper prototype is less appropriate for this type of evaluation because you're trying to measure usability metrics. And with usability metrics, you need some level of polish in the interface. The data that you deal with is typically quantitative. You could take observations, but oftentimes you're measuring things like time to complete the task, error rate, success rate, etc. The feedback you get are measure and errors. So you measure people's capability for the task. You might have questionnaires that people rate the usability and the um, experiential qualities of the system and any errors that come up. And it's very applied. So you're seeing how people do the task and understand how you might be able to improve the design. This is why you want to kind of control the environments because you then know what you can do to improve the design. You can focus in your evaluation on the questions that you have. So it's very applied on answering those questions. With field studies, like we talked about, it's participants are in their natural environment. You might just provide the interface and see how they do, or watch them using an established interface. It's located in a natural location, so it might be someone's workplace or their home or out in the public sphere, so wherever your interface or system might be used. It's often early in the system design. So you might look at an existing system or go and observe how people are interacting with the world to kind of understand them. Or kind of late in the design process is also early in the iteration. When you have a fairly finished design, you might deploy it in a longitudinal study to see how things are going. And that would inform the next set of iterations. These tend to be a little more qualitative in nature because you can take quantitative measures, of course, but you tend to be focused on what's going on. You might be looking at how people taking observations of how people are interacting with the system, or maybe interviewing them after the fact, possibly doing contextual inquiries where you are going in, talking to them in their place of work or their living space, and ask them questions in situ about the system. You tend to get more descriptions of what's going on, either the descriptions that you take from observation or that your participants provide. And it tends to be a lot more naturalistic. You're really trying to get at the natural setting here. Analytical evaluations are quite a bit different. They don't involve participants at all. They involve experts or possibly a system that will do your evaluation for you to follow a process or use a mathematical model. They can be located anywhere. It's usually used on prototypes, and the data that you get are a set of problems that you need to fix. So often you don't have, actual data of how people might be using the system, but you do know that there are problem areas that you can then improve upon. So you know how to rearrange the hierarchy of a menu, for example, or the flow through a system. So these are tools that allow you to really kind of identify these problems before you need to address them. Same with feedback. It identifies a set of problems that you can then go fix, and you can do this almost before you do an actual more expensive evaluation with participants. And it is an expert evaluation. You bring in a set of experts or you use your team to do this kind of evaluation rather than finding participants. So what methods do each of these approaches involve? Well, with usability testing, it often involves observation as well as recording data with the interface. You ask participants, you might get their feedback in an interview or focus group. Typically, it does involve asking experts, and it does involve testing. So you are, putting people in front of their system, and you're seeing how they work. You're kind of testing things there. With field studies, you are still observing and asking participants. You might be asking experts. So there might be domain experts in the field, or you might have experts look at the environment and start to understand what's going on. But you're not directly testing various interfaces typically. With analytical evaluations, you're asking experts, so experts are involved in the evaluation, and you are doing modeling. So you have this extra layer of an ability to support an evaluation without bringing in participants. Often you combine these different approaches. So you might start with a field study to evaluate initial design ideas and get early feedback. So you might bring some experiential prototypes to your potential users or look at existing systems. Then you make some design changes and you do some usability testing on a medium fidelity prototype to test specific design features. So if you have this one feature, people are able to go through faster or with fewer errors, or they think it could be better. You then might deploy it in a field study, see what happens in a natural setting, and then make some final design choices. And along the way, you might want to do some modeling or analytical evaluation before you deploy to make sure you get rid of any problems and get the most out of your participant studies. So the key takeaways for this lesson are evaluation and design are very closely integrated. You want to evaluate as you design in different times and in different ways. There are three main evaluation approaches that we talk about: usability testing, field studies, and analytical evaluation. And we'll cover each of these in future lessons. Main evaluation methods involve observing people and systems, asking users, asking experts, testing, and modeling the system. There are many approaches and methods that are often combined in one study, and so you might find yourself drawing upon different studies and different techniques as you go about this process. So what you want to really do is have a tool belt, like a utility belt of techniques to be able to evaluate what you need to, when you need to, during that design process. And we'll talk about that and give you those tools as this goes on. So ultimately, be able to describe different approaches to evaluation and think about the different ways you can do evaluation. We'll dive deeper into these different ones in future lessons. That's all for now. See you next time.